Okay, so today the subject I'm going to talk about is Mao. I chose this subject because I think it's the most important in regarding Chinese history. He was the leader that affected the current day society, and without him, like the Chinese society wouldn't be like the global power that we know of today. He shaped China's community. He was the one that like brought China like together as a nation, made it a global power, defended it from the Japanese, and I think he's so important when like looking at Chinese politics today and why China is like the way it is, why it's got this strong like political like party and the communist regime and stuff. That was all him. And so basically, there's many that believe that Mao is a monster, but like personally, I don't think he is because I mean, obviously, there were many things that he did do that were so like monstrous, such as like the murdering of like the Cultural Revolution, the Great Leap Forward, which turned into a complete disaster. But really, he was just trying to look for a savior for China because he saw the first 5-year plan for China go so well, bring China like up into an industrialized nation, but he wanted more than that. He wanted to, as he said, pass England and catch up to America. And so basically, he had good intentions. He always did. And I don't think it's fair that some people see him as his monster. Like, I know he did some, like, horrible things, but he was just trying to make China the very strong political power that it is today. And so he also, in the beginning of his leadership, there was the very strong Japanese force against him when he first came into power, when he took over the nationalists. They actually managed to defeat the Japanese with the help of the Soviet Union. They worked so closely with the Soviet Union. And so they became a match to the Japanese and to major powers like America and England and stuff. And Mao was able to create them to be that major power that they could match up to this. Mao relates to the past in China in like many ways. I mean, he was very strongly communist, obviously. But I see a lot of legalist actions in him. I mean, obviously he wasn't Confucius or Taoist, but I think the dynasty that Mao most relates to is the Qin dynasty. I mean, I see a lot of similar like acts that happened in the Qin dynasty happen again in Mao's years as a ruler. For example, the Qin dynasty was very legalist and very against like other beliefs such as Confucian or Taoism, and that's the same that Mao was. Mao was very communist, which has very similar rulings. It believes that the government should be completely in charge of the economy, and Mao was very strongly communist, just like Qin was very strongly legalist. And they were completely against other beliefs. And so we saw Mao as a very strong believer in this, just like Qin was of legalism. And they, of course, took steps to minimize the other threats of other parties in Mao's sense or other beliefs in the Qin Emperor's sense. Like, for example, the Qin Emperor had the burning of the books. He burned thousands and thousands of copies of Confucian texts just so that people didn't get the idea of rising above the Qin dynasty, so that he wouldn't feel as a threat to he wouldn't have the people as a threat to him. And Mao did a similar thing. I mean, he had the Cultural Revolution. He wanted to make sure that there were no other beliefs in China other than communism. And it was very like key in his ruling, was that he had to have everybody's control on them. They had to have like their minds completely in control, so that they didn't even think of having any other ways of life, because he was scared of course, like takeover or like people's like rising up to challenge Mao. And that's exactly how Qin was. He did everything he could to avoid people rising up against his regime, and so he went to the extent of burning all the books. He had a huge, massive book burning. It was very, very, very illegal. You were killed or very, very harshly punished if you were caught with either Confucius or like with the Confucius texts. He also was responsible for burying hundreds and hundreds of scholars alive, as so it was said, because they didn't share the same beliefs as him, and it was actually Qin's advisor that recommended that he would have all these people removed from his empire because he didn't want to have this threat. He was the one that created a unified China, and so he was the one that wanted to keep it like that and didn't want to have any other like small issues of like other beliefs getting in his way. And Mao was the same way. I mean, he did so many great things for China's economy. I mean, he was the one that made it a global power and made it match up to the world, such as like the power such as the US, and that was not possible without Mao. I mean, he was exactly like the Qin Emperor, but of course in a different sense, because like the Qin Emperor was the one to create that unified China. I mean, before it was set up into fives, like each area of China didn't interact with each other, but he was the one that brought it all under one emperor, one ruling, one regime, and that's why he was the way he was. He wanted to make sure that the people were not wanting to go back to that separate way. I mean, and Mao was the exact same. He wanted to make sure that that China didn't go back into the agrarian society that it once was. I mean, he created this unified nation that like was just so industrialized, and it was on the rise more and more and more, and he wanted to make sure that it was not an issue. So yeah, that's, in my opinion, Mao and Qin relate the closest because of the way they ruled, the way their actions took place in China, the way that they were both seen for some reasons as monsters, because I mean they both did these horrible acts as people of some sort. But to be honest, I see both of them as heroes because they were able to create a unified China, such as in Qin's case. But Mao was able to create that industrialized society that China needed in order to bring it out of the slumps, basically, and make it a match for powers such as Great Britain or America or Japan, who was very, very close to taking over. And so, yeah, that concludes my Mao speech. Thank you.